Today we're going to finish our birch tree landscape paintings, and we're going to talk a little bit about composition, or where we arrange things on our landscape. Each of these pieces of white paper is going to be a tree. Now I have wider trees and I have narrower trees. What I need to know about composition and perspective is that trees that are closer to me, the viewer, are going to look wider than trees that are further away. So when I look at these two trees right here, this one is going to be much closer and this one's going to be much further away to make the picture look 3D. There are a number of different ways that I can arrange these white strips, my trees. I could arrange them in a line like this. But this doesn't look very natural. Trees don't usually grow in a perfectly straight line unless they've been planted that way. So I kind of want to create some variety with my tree placement. So maybe I'll put this one in the middle and a little off to the side. And then maybe I'll have one that's slightly further away here, and then maybe one that's really close to it, maybe one that's a little further away here, and maybe one that's further away here. Now another thing I have to think about is where are the bottom of my trees going to be? Each tree is going to be closer or further away. This tree is in the foreground. He's closest to me. But the ones that are further away, they can't be at the same level as the one that's closest to me because that doesn't look realistic. All the trees in a line like this, it doesn't look realistic. Instead, I have to arrange them to show distance. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the one that's closest to me, that's the widest one, and I'm going to move his bottom all the way down to the bottom of my page. That will show that he is closest to me. The next widest one, he's going to be a little further away. So I'm going to arrange the bottom of his trunk a little closer to the bottom, but a little further up than the one that's closest. One that's a little smaller, for example, this one, he's just a little smaller than this one. He's going to be a little bit further away again, a little bit higher up on the page. Not terribly high, but see this one, he's my skinniest, so he's going to be even higher. And I can vary, I could put him here, I could put him here, I could even put him way up here, but I think about here looks about right. And instead of putting him right in the middle of these two trees, I'm going to move him a little closer to one to make it look more natural, because trees aren't regularly spaced out. They're very random in their spacing in nature. Now this tree, I'm not going to put him right in the middle of the edge of my page in that tree. I'm going to put him either closer to the edge or closer to that tree. I think I'll put him a little closer to the edge. And then I can put his base anywhere I want along here. But if I think about it, his base should be higher up than the ones that are wider. That will give the illusion of distance. Now, automatically, my picture actually looks like some of the trees are closer and some of the trees are farther away, just based on how I placed them. I now have to make them look like actual trees. So I'm going to take my pastel. This is a black pastel. And I'm going to create some bark. I want the bark to be random, and these are birch trees. So birch tree bark goes from side to side. So I'm doing little dashes. And the ones that are further away, their dashes can be smaller. I'm going to make these dashes all the way from the bottom to the top of each of my trees. And they can have a tiny bit of a curve to them. They can either be straight across or have the tiniest bit of a curve. And I want them to go all the way from the bottom of my tree to the top, spread out, so that my trees are now coming to life and really, really looking like real live birch trees. I have a few more details I need to add now. After I add my bark, I'm now going to add a shadow. So in nature, the light will be shining from one direction or another, and then the shadow will be on the opposite side of the tree. For example, if you look at my arm, the light is shining on this side and the shadow is on this side. So I'm going to take the same principle and I'm going to shade my trees. The way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to draw a nice black line along the very edge of my tree. And then this is the part where I get a little messy. After I draw that black line on every tree, I'm just going to blend it a tiny bit with my finger. Blend just a tiny bit, smudging in. It shouldn't cover a lot of my tree. It should just give a hint of a shadow on the side. A hint of the shadow on the side. I'm going to do that on all my trees. And the last thing I'm going to do, after I do that, on my skinnier tree, it should be a skinnier shadow. This tree, it's going to be a really skinny shadow. Trying to be careful. I don't want to get it all over my paper. And I barely even have to smudge that one. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give each tree an actual shadow on the ground. So this tree, it's just going to be a very, very light bit of shadow, just a little bit around the base and a little bit away. Around the base, just a little bit away. Around the base here, a little bit pulling away. Around the base, I'm pulling a little bit away. And this one doesn't need a shadow because I can't see its bottom. This one here, I can't see the bottom. It comes off the page. So he doesn't need a shadow. Now my trees look like they are three-dimensional. They look like they have distance. Some look closer, some look further away. Remember that last time we talked about the background. That's the part that's furthest away from you. That's our sky and our leaves. We talked about the midground. That's the trees that are in the middle. These here, these ones that are further back and these ones that are slightly closer. And then we also talked about the foreground. Foreground is what's closest to me, and that's this tree right here. So remember those words, background, midground, and foreground is closest. So now you have created a beautiful landscape with birch trees showing distance, showing three-dimensional distance. This is a beautiful piece of artwork, and I hope you are proud of yourself.